Hey guys, this is Chris. I've got a short video here today. This is about my 1985 Volvo 240 wagon. It's developed kind of a misfire. It's not running right, but it does run. And in many cases, in my opinion, cars that kind of run on and off, or you know, they're not running perfectly. It's a little bit more difficult to diagnose than a car that actually doesn't run at all. When it's not running at all, it's completely missing a component that makes it run. But when it's a little, sometimes it runs and sometimes it doesn't, or it's kind of an intermittent issue, it's a little bit more difficult. So we're going to see if we can diagnose this issue in just a few minutes. And I've got three readily available, affordable, cheap tools that I like to use in diagnosing cars. The first thing you want to do is to run a compression test, which I've already done. And it's 160 psi across all 4 cylinders. It's a very healthy motor. So I know there's no head gasket issue according to the gauge, at least. So next we're going to see what component it's kind of not getting enough of. So like most internal combustion engines, it's going to need 3 things. It's going to be air, a spark, and a fuel supply. And if you're missing any one of those, the car is not going to run at all. If you're getting too little an amount of one of those, it will have kind of an intermittent issue. And so we're going to see if we can kind of pinpoint what it's missing and what to do about that. So the 3 things that we need are a spark tester, and this plugs in line to the spark plug wire, a fuel injection Noid light, the GM PFI one fits the electronic fuel injectors perfectly, and a sprayer that's just filled with water. So we're going to start up the car and let the engine warm up, and then we're going to use the water bottle to see if each of the exhaust manifolds are warm enough to evaporate the water, meaning that there's full combustion going on inside that cylinder. So notice when I spray water at runners 4 and 3, the water hits it and evaporates almost immediately. But whenever I spray runners 2 and 1, the water kind of sits there for a second before it evaporates. So cylinders 1 and 2 are definitely running a little bit cooler than cylinders 3 and 4. And so I just have to try to figure out what's going on with those two. So I have a Noid light plugged into injector 1, and when I unplugged that injector, actually it wasn't any sort of change to the idle at all, but the Noid light is flashing as it should. Also, the spark plug tester is showing that it's getting a solid spark as well. So even though cylinder 1 is getting spark and a signal to fire the injectors, it's still running a lot cooler. This is the vacuum line that goes to the fuel pressure regulator, and it should not have any fuel in it, but it does. So and there's no fuel coming out of the return on the fuel pressure regulator. So based on the water spray test, I could tell that cylinders 1 and 2 were actually running a lot cooler than 3 and 4. And based on the spark test, I could, the plug, the spark plug tester goes in between the plug wire and the actual plug itself. I could tell based on the flashing light that it was actually getting signal. It should have been getting spark. And the Noid light that I plugged into fuel injector 1, the socket fuel injector 1, I could tell that it was also flashing, so it was getting a signal to fire the fuel injector. I know there shouldn't be any sort of major internal problems like a dropped valve, just based on the compression tests I did prior to everything. That was good. So it has a signal to shoot fuel out, and it has spark. The last remaining factor would be that the actual fuel injector itself is clogged or unable to provide the fuel necessary for the cylinder to combust. So that's what I came up with. When I actually started to pull the fuel injectors out, I realized that not only, yes, they were clogged, 1 and 2 a lot worse than 3 and 4, but the fuel pressure regulator was leaking out of the vacuum side, so it was also done for. So sometimes, you dig into it and you find a lot more problems than you originally thought there were. But yeah, so hypothetically, you could go down the line and check for spark in all 4 cylinders. I didn't feel like it was necessary to do so because it was obviously firing on 3 and 4. And also you could hypothetically go and put a Noid light on each fuel injector socket. Again, I didn't need to. 3 and 4 are firing correctly. And hypothetically, if you are getting signal at one of the fuel injector sockets, the rest of all 4 should be getting it because they are batch fire from the ECU. But there could be internal problems, internal wiring problems, but you can always double check. But anyways, we came to the conclusion that the fuel injectors were clogged and the fuel pressure regulator was leaking as well. Okay. So we've got the fuel pressure regulator here, and the thing I was looking at was that there is a diaphragm here where the vacuum from the intake manifold hooks up to this nipple here, and it pulls vacuum. And this is the fuel supply where it comes from the rail, and this is the return line. So this and this are definitely supposed to be getting fuel. There shouldn't be any fuel on this side of it, and I could tell just because it was just dripping fuel out. So I went ahead and replaced that. And here are cylinders 1 and 2, the fuel injectors for those, and they, there's a lot of heavy carbon buildup, but they're definitely clogged on the side where it connects to the rail. So let's go ahead and take a closer look in here. All right, so it's hard to see inside of it, but there's definitely debris that's inside the fuel injector where it sits inside the rail. I went ahead and replaced all 4 just because they all had debris to some varying degree. I replaced all 4 with a set that I'd had professionally cleaned, and I'll likely send these out as well just so I have another set for the next time I come across this problem. All right, so that's how I go about diagnosing these old 240s. It was pretty simple this time around. All it needed was some fuel injectors and a fuel pressure regulator. It's not always that case, and that might not be your case as well. And a lot of the times, even in my own experience, I'm left scratching my head. But just keep at it. I think this is a great way for you to start in your diagnosing process. You try to figure out if it has the fundamentals of running, and if it is running, you try to figure out if the rough running issue is systemic or if it's just isolated to a few cylinders. You find the cylinders that are giving you problems, and then you try to determine what it's missing that's making it that particular cylinder run incorrectly, or what it's not getting enough of. In a lot of the cases, it's I find it to just be fuel. So even though these old 240s don't have a place to plug in a code reader to determine what the problem is, with just a few cheap handheld tools, you can diagnose or start getting in the right direction of what needs to be done to get it running right. So hopefully this is a helpful video for you. If it is, just click like and subscribe, and feel free to share my videos. And I will catch you up on some of my other projects next time. Thanks.